Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parujaka Acharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parujaka Acharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, just so there's no confusion, text 15. No? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 13th day of July 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 13 entitled Nature, the Enjoyer and Consciousness, and we're reading from text 15 today, bottom of page 545. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhritchaiva Nirgunam Gunabhoktracha Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhritchaiva Nirgunam Gunabhoktracha Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya Vivarjitam Asaktam Sarvabhritchaiva Nirgunam Gunabhoktracha. Sarvendriya Gunabhasam Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. I think we close that door because these helicopters, they start going in a circle. It stays noisy. Okay, that's better. Anyone else? Want to try? Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Sarvendriya vivarjitam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Sarvendriya gunabhritam. Asaktam sarvabhrichaiva. Nirgunam gunabhoktracha. Okay, I'll read the word by words myself. You just read along silently. Sarva of all, indriya senses, guna of the qualities, abhasam, the original source. Sarva all, indriya senses, vivarjitam, being without. Asaktam, without attachment. Sarva bhrit, the maintainer of everyone. Cha, also, eva, certainly. Nirgunam, without material qualities. Guna bhoktra, master of the gunas. Cha, also. Translation. The Supersoul is the original source of all senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached, although he is the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature, and at the same time, he is the master of all the modes of material nature. Purport. The Supreme Lord, although the source of all the senses of the living entities, doesn't have material senses like they have. Actually, the individual souls have spiritual senses, but in conditioned life, they are covered, the senses are covered with the material elements, and therefore the sense activities are exhibited through matter. The Supreme Lord's senses are not so covered. His senses are transcendental and are therefore called nirguna. Guna means the material modes, but his senses are without material covering. It should be understood that his senses are not exactly like ours. Although he is the source of all our sensory activities, he has his transcendental senses which are uncontaminated. This is very nicely explained in the Shvetashvatar Upanishad 3.19 in the verse Apanipado Javano Grahita. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no hands which are materially contaminated, but he has his hands and he accepts whatever sacrifice is offered to him. That is the distinction between the conditioned soul and the Supersoul. He has no material eyes, but he has eyes. Otherwise, how could he see? He sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being, and he knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. He knows everything, but no one knows him. It is said that the Supreme Lord has no legs like us, but he can travel throughout space because he has spiritual legs. In other words, the Lord is not impersonal. He has his eyes, legs, hands, and everything else, and because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, we also have these things. But his hands, legs, eyes, and senses are not contaminated by material nature. The Bhagavad Gita also confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. He is not contaminated by the material energy, because he is the Lord of material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. He has his eternal form called Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He is full of all opulence. He is the proprietor of all wealth and the owner of all energy. He is the most intelligent and is full of knowledge. These are some of the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the maintainer of all living entities and the witness of all activity. As far as we can understand from Vedic literature, the Supreme Lord is always transcendental. Although we do not see his head, face, hands, or legs, he has them, and when we are elevated to the transcendental situation, we can see the Lord's form. Due to materially contaminated senses, we cannot see his form. Therefore, the impersonalists who are still materially affected cannot understand the personality of Godhead. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, I'm not going to go through those 6 questions again of Arjuna, but just to decide which of the 6 questions he's answering. This is the search. Arjuna asked he wanted to know what knowledge is and what the goal of knowledge is. What is the Prakriti, Purusha, what is the Chaitra, Gya, and finally what is knowledge, Jnana, and what is Gyeya, the goal of knowledge. So Krishna has gone through the first 5, and now he's describing the object of knowledge. And the object of knowledge, of course, is Krishna. And Krishna now is explaining his manifestation or expansion as the Supersoul. And these are what I like to call these kind of Upanishadic verses, these where they seem to be self-contradictory in a sense. Sarvendriya gunabhasam, sarvendriya vivarjitam. You know, he has the original source of all senses, but he himself is without senses. You know, that's like one hand clapping. You know what I mean? Asaktam savabritchaiva nirgudam gunam. Now this is an interesting one. Asaktam savabritchaiva. He is the maintainer of everyone, and yet he is without attachment. Now, in the material life, think about it. In ordinary course of events, a man has a family and so forth, and he's maintaining them. And that he's maintaining them because he's attached. And by that maintenance, he becomes more attached. But Krishna, although he's maintaining everything, everyone, really provides, he's not attached at all. So that's kind of also very paradoxical. And then Nirgunam Gunabhoktacha, he's the master of the senses, or master of the gunas, master of all the 3 modes of nature, but he himself is without them. He's untinged by the modes of nature, although he's the source of them. So let's go through this purport. There's a lot of good information in here, and Prabhupada refers to various sources outside the Gita. The main thrust of this purport is that, as I was explaining last night, we can't try to understand the absolute. This word adhokshaja came up, right? Didn't we deal with that? Adhokshaja is a name for Krishna that literally means transcendental person, beyond the range of our senses and mind. But it's interesting the way this word is put together. It's 3 different words combined: Adha, Aksha, and Ja. So Ja means born. It's short for Janma. So and Aksha Ja is that knowledge which is born from our sense investigation. In other words, the famous ascending process of knowledge, scientific method. You see and you measure with other senses, and then you come to some theory, you test it, go on, and then you say, this looks like it's accurate. It's been confirmed, by other investigators using their senses and mind. And so now we'll put this in the books. This is what we know now about how water is produced from hydrogen and oxygen, whatever it may be. So this is what the ascending method of knowledge. But it's limited, obviously, by our own senses and mind. because we are able to perceive those things, we've increased our ability through microscopes, through telescopes, all kinds of other ways. Now we can expand our understanding of how the material world is working. So that's, but these verses and this description of the Supersoul and Prabhupada's purport is meant to disabuse us of that illusion that we can understand reality with our limited senses. We can only understand a little bit of how the material world works. We can't understand adhokshaja. The adha in adhokshaja means down, pushing down. So he pushes down, in other words, defeats or transcends all knowledge that can be gotten through the material senses and mind. Now this word, I think we mentioned this last night. This is used as a name or indication of the absolute truth, especially when you're speaking about the early stages of establishing faith in the transcendence. Right in the second chapter, first canto, there's a famous verse in which the Sutta Goswami is answering the question from the sages, what is the supreme dharma by which the soul can be completely satisfied? Very important section. We made a little book out of this verse and the ones that follow it. There's a whole lesson there. And we called it Dharma, the way of transcendence. So the first verse is pretty famous. Savai pungsang paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Here's that word again. Ahaituki apratiyata yeyatma suprasiditi. Hare Krishna. Welcome. Would you like to stay for the class and then see the darshan? Darshan is at 8:15. Yes. You're welcome to stay, but can he be kept quiet? He looks pretty peaceful. He looks pretty peaceful. First flyer or flower? Flower. A flower. Yeah. Okay. From the branch we took from the cuttings. Yes, the cuttings. Very nice. You want to offer? Nice. Anyway, if you'd like to take a seat here, we can have many cushions, and have a Bhagavad Gita class, and then at 8:15 the curtains will open. We'll have a nice kirtan. Or if you'd like, you can sit in the patio, whatever. It's up to you. Okay, we're going to continue the class. Hare Krishna. So, the Srila Prabhupada first talks about this word adhokshaja. So this is like for the first step in God realization, is understanding that we're limited. We can't understand God with our limited senses. There's a famous verse, some of you may know it. Atakshi Krishna Namadi Nabaved Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukha Hijibado Swayam Evasparatida. So it literally says the name and the qualities and of God, Shri Krishna Namadi. Nama means the holy name, Adi means etc. So there's an order in which they come. I don't know if you know about this. Everything is there in the name. It's a complete process, right? There's a verse about that. So if you chant purely, eventually the form of God will be revealed. He will reveal the form. And then the qualities. And then the pastimes, just by chanting. This is why Haridas Thakur was such a great scholar. He just chanted. But everything was revealed, and whatever he spoke was just right out of the Vedic literature, realization. But the important point, Atak Shri Krishna Nabave Grayam Indriyai. This word Grayam means, we have this word grasp. I'm trying to understand what you say, but I can't grasp it. You know what I'm saying? In other words, it means understanding. We cannot understand or perceive the reality of the name, form, etc. of Krishna with our materially contaminated senses. Nabave Grayam, grass, Indriyai with the senses. But Atakshi Krishna Nama Nabave Grayam Indriyai Sevon Mukhe Hijivado. If you start serving the Lord, beginning with the tongue, Sevon Jivado Swayam Evasparatida. Eventually, if you do it right and you get to the point of chanting and hearing purely, chanting and hearing purely, the Lord reveals Himself. Swayam Evasparatida. So everything that we can truly understand that's true about the transcendence comes through revelation. It's just simply by the mercy of the Lord. As soon as we don't have that, and it's just some material investigation, everything closes up. You really can't understand the reality, and what you get is all of these seeming paradoxes. He has no senses, but he can. And Prabhupada quotes this Apanipado javano grihita. The next line is pashyat chakshu sashanot karna. So what apani is a word hand. One of the words for hand is pani. He has no hands and feet. Pada, we know pada. Javana, but he can go everywhere. He has no feet, but he can go fast, run faster than anyone. Javana actually means to run. He can run faster than anyone. And grihita means he can grasp everything. Has no hands, but he can grasp. That's like a koan right there, isn't it? But that's the idea. Yeah. And the next line is, which it probably doesn't give, pashyati, he sees a chakshu without, but he has no eyes, like us. Sashvanot, he hears a karna without ears like us. So this is to get us to disabuse of the idea that Krishna has senses like us. He has senses, which are the archetypes of all senses. Ours are imitation senses. Ears and eyes and everything. They work through matter, but they're very limited. But his aren't. So this is Shvedashtu Upanishad. The distinction, he has his hands, but ours are materially contaminated. We're covered, so we can only perceive matter. Now, it's really important to understand. This is the basis of deity worship and everything we have that's in a temple. Krishna reaches out through the deity, through the holy name, through the prasadam, through everything that our senses can perceive, but because they're related directly to him, he reaches out, because if we contact him through those things under the guidance of the acharya in the proper way, then through the deity itself we'll be able to eventually, Krishna will communicate with us personally. The deity will talk to you. Prabhupada says there are many, this is a direct quote, there are many cases. He even goes. You remember Sakshi Gopal? That's a great story. Worth telling. So, this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now the context is Lord Chaitanya is telling this story, is it Nityananda telling the story? I forget one of the but he's on his way to Puri after taking sannyas with Lord Nityananda and several other devotees. And they stop at this temple, this Sakshi Gopal temple. Now Sakshi means witness. So that gives you a hint. Have you ever heard this story before? Okay, so we got someone who's new. So, first of all, the overarching motive behind including this story is exactly what Krishna is doing here, to kind of expand our understanding of what's possible in the transcendence, So, there was one, I forget the name of the town, but it was from a city that was quite a distance from Vrindavan. These two Brahmins, one elder and one younger, decided to go on pilgrimage to Vrindavan. And so the elder, was a little bit shaky, and so the younger took care of him in every step, made sure there was prasadam, made sure he had, enough water and sleep and everything, So when they got to Vrindavan, the elder Brahmin was very, very grateful. And so they visited the temple of Gopal, and they had a darshan there, and so the Brahmin was feeling very grateful, and so he promised that when they got back to the town where they came from, that he would give his youngest daughter to this nice young Brahmin as for marriage. And the younger Brahmin said, no, you shouldn't promise that, because I'm from a very poor family and you're from a very wealthy family, and your relatives will not like that at all. There's going to be a lot of trouble. But the elder insisted, no, this is my responsibility. I have a right to do it. And so the younger said, okay, if you really intend to do it, then you have to promise before the deity. Before Gopal. So they went before the deity, and everyone knows, that you cannot tell a lie before the deity. If you promise before the deity, it's very serious. It's a great sin to then violate that promise. So he promised, said, yes, I promise that when we get back to the town, I'll do it. So they made their way all the way back, and the elder Brahmin was being taken care of by the younger Brahmin. And then when they got back there, the elder Brahmin went home, and the young Brahmin went to his house. But then, when the elder Brahmin mentioned his plan, his elder son was furious. He said, how can you do that? We'll be disgraced, And his wife said, if you do that, if you give the youngest daughter to him, then I'm going to commit suicide. So now he says, oh my God. So now he was in a dilemma. So he didn't go, He just sat on it. So the younger Brahmin says, oh boy, he promised, now he's not doing it, so what happened? So he goes to the house, and he says to the older Brahmin, he said, you promised, what's going on? So the older Brahmin didn't say anything, and out from the house comes the older son. He says, get away from here, You bewildered my father, or you poisoned him, you stole his money, get out of here. So he's going after him with a stick, and the younger Brahmin is running away. So the younger Brahmin said he wasn't so attached to the marriage, but he was very much attached that the older Brahmin wouldn't incur the sin by breaking his promise before the deity. Says, what am I going to do? So he called all the elders of the town together and said, here's the dilemma, and the principals were all present, He promised to give me before the deity that he would give me his youngest daughter for marriage. Now he's not doing it because of the influence of his family. So what to do? So the older son spoke up and said, he poisoned my father, he took all his money, he's a rogue and a rascal. So he made up that story. So how are they going to investigate? Okay. So it's a dilemma. So then the younger Brahmin speaks up and said, look, I will go back to Vrindavan, and I'll bring Gopal to stand witness. In fact, he had told Gopal at the time, he said, I may need to call you later on as a witness. And Gopal just kept smiling in that very sweet way, he didn't say anything, So the young son, who's an atheist, he says, oh, this is a great solution, because he'll never be able to bring the witness, And the young Brahmin thinks, oh yeah, I'll bring the witness, So both of them were satisfied, and it was signed. It was a signed contract. This is the deal. So the elders were happy. It was peaceful. Okay, so time goes on, and he goes all the way back to Vrindavan, and he comes before Gopal, and he says, well, you're going to have to come and bear witness. And so Gopal says, how can a statue walk? I can't, So the younger Brahma said, if you can talk, you can walk. So so Prabhupada says in one telling of the story, Gopal was defeated in the logic, so therefore he had to go. So Gopal set a condition. Okay, you cook some a kilo of rice for me every day, nice rice, and offer it, and I'll follow behind. And you'll know that I'm following by my nupur, the ankle bells. You'll hear my ankle bells, tink, clink, 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 clink. So, but you can't look back. As soon as you look back, I'm stopping. I'm coming. You can hear the ankle bells. You know I'm there. And each night you'll see I'm right behind you when we stop. So they go back, and all the way back. And then when they get near the town, they're just a stone's throw from the town. He can't hear the ankle bells anymore. He's worried. What happened? He turns around, and then Gopal says, I told you not to look. Now I'm not going any further. So the young Brahmin said, that's okay. You're close enough to the town. I'll just get the townspeople to come out, and they'll see you, and you'll bear witness there. So that's what happened. And the townspeople were amazed, and they built a temple. And the younger Brahmani was married like that. And that deity, I think, I forget the detail. I think it went to another city eventually, but he's known as Sakshi Gopal, the witness Gopal. So this is one instance. There are others. The self-manifested Radha Raman deity was a famous one, where the deity doesn't, he kind of breaks out of the bounds of what you would normally think he can do. But the idea, the point is that Krishna is waiting for us, for our pure devotion and our faith, to reveal himself accordingly, exactly proportionally. As they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So all of these statements about the Supersoul are meant to kind of help us break out of the box of our material restrictions of what we think God can be or God cannot be. And I think I'm going to let Alex speak, because he's got that mic. He must have a question or a comment.
That's a question. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, Bhagavad Gita also confirms that when the Lord appears, he appears as he is by his internal potency. Yeah. He's not contaminated by the material energy, because he's the Lord of the material energy. In the Vedic literature, we find that his whole embodiment is spiritual. So in the fifth canto, in the prayers offered by the residents of Jambudvip,
I think you need to speak it.
There's one, it's describing in one Varsha they worship Pradyumna as Kamadev. And Prabhupada in the purport says, he explains that actually Pradyumna, he's Vishnu Tattva, but it's a material body. And I was kind of confused by that. I was wondering if there were any other examples of that in incarnations of the Lord, or...
You know, that's an interesting question, because I remember when we were working on the Bhagavatam in the 10th canto, I think it came up, because Pradyumna was one of Krishna's sons, his first son by Rukmini, right? He famously got kidnapped and then, came back, killed the demon, came back. So, what I understand is that he's a special manifestation. It's like Kamadev lost his body, right? He was burned to ashes by I think it was it Shiva? I think it burned him. Yeah, because he tried to affect it. So he appeared within the body of Pradyumna as an expansion, but still Pradyumna is a son of Krishna. So he's a special incarnation. I forget all the details. I'll have to look it up. But it's a special case, and we'll deal with that. What was I going to... Oh yeah, we did Atakshi Krishnamadi. Oh yes, the Lord appears by his internal potency. So that's in the 7th chapter. No, where Krishna's explaining... No, 4th chapter, where he's explaining how and why and when he appears. Right, the famous Yada Yadahi Dharma Seklana Bhavati Bharata. And then, but Krishna has told Arjuna that he spoke at the beginning of the chapter, that I spoke this same science to the sun god, right? And Arjuna, he says, well, how is that possible? Because we're contemporaries. That was like millions and millions of years ago. So it doesn't compute. Can you explain it? So then Krishna explains, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjana tanyaham vedasavani natvam beta parantava. Many, many births both you and I have had. But I have remembered them all, you can't. You can't remember them. And Prabhupada explains, the reason Arjuna can't explain, because he changes his body. He may appear in a different form. It's the same Arjuna's soul, but he transmigrates. And so he forgets. But Krishna never really changes his body. It's the same Satchidananda form in different manifestations. So the next verse, I think it is the one Prabhupada's referring to here. Ajopi san, abhyatma, bhutanam isharopi san, prakatam svamadishtaya sambhavam yatma mayaya. That word atma mayaya means by my internal energy. Although I'm unborn and my spiritual body never deteriorates, I still appear in every millennium in my own transcendental form by my internal energy. So this is a stark contrast to how we appear. We're also reincarnating, but not by our internal potency, by force, by material energy. And it's a painful situation. Krishna's all doing it by his own will, by his internal energy. That's what it means. So this is a way of again, a contrast between his appearance and ours. And then, of course, the body, Satchidananda Vigraha. Now, it's important to remember that we also have a Satchidananda Vigraha. But because we're minute, it's been covered over, because we wanted to be independent of Krishna. And so we don't have our spiritual body manifest, but it's still there. And Krishna consciousness is gradually discovering what that is, or serving Krishna in such a way that he reveals more and more of who we really are. And the basic principle is that it's a body to serve Krishna. And so the whole process is, even with this material body, if we serve Krishna, then eventually it becomes spiritualized. It's not that we're going to suddenly appear in our Siddha Swarup. We'll understand what that is, and when we're reborn, when we go to the spiritual world, we'll have our manifestation. But we all have that body. We have a Satchidananda body, but it's covered now. So we should have that faith. Okay, let's go on. Do we have any questions from abroad? Oh, local.
So, Prabhu, you said that real truth we learn through revelation.
A real what?
Truth, like we learn through revelation versus
through revelation.
Figure out. But how do we know? Like, how do we tell it apart from our own concoction or mental?
By our pillars of pramana. Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. You see? In other words, we may think we just had a revelation, but we have to think, oh, is there something like this in the Shastra? And let me consult, realized souls, or check it. So this is our. Otherwise, we can get off into speculation and get away from the real parampara. You remember, sometimes I like to review the 10 root principles. Dashamula, have you heard of those? 10 points. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he wrote a verse that has the 10 root principles of the Gaudiya philosophy as taught by Lord Chaitanya. It's in his work that he sent to McGill University in the Gauranga Leela Smarana Mangala Stotra, auspicious stotras for remembering Gauranga's Leela in Sanskrit. But he also wrote an English essay, Lord Chaitanya's Life and Precepts, which, Prabhupada thought it was very significant that he sent it to McGill University, English, the year of his birth, 1896. That's when he sent it. So anyway, this Dasamula actually forms the framework for the Jaiva Dharma, which is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's most exhaustive presentation of the philosophy that he made in the form of a novel. It's very interesting. So anyway, the first statement of that Dasamula, it goes, Amnaya Prahatattvam. You know this one. Amnaya Prahatattvam Hadamiha Padamam Sarva Shaktim Rasabdim Tad Binangshangsta Jivan Pakatika Balitang Tad Vimuktangsta Bhavat Beda Prakasam Sakalam Abhihare Sadhanam Shuddha Bhaktim Sadhyam Tad Pritameve to Buddhishidatanan Gora Chanda Bhajeta. It's worth memorizing that because the whole philosophy is there in a nutshell. Everything else is just sub categories of those subjects. So the very first one is not actually a philosophical principle, so much as a statement of where this knowledge comes from. Amnaya, the word amnaya, means the shastric knowledge as it comes to us through the parampara. Because the shastra, it can be sitting there on a shelf, and if you don't have someone to explain it to you, and you can't understand what it means. So Prabhupada has very nicely given us all these purports, but still, it's rare that someone just reads the Bhagavad Gita and then understands completely and then, joins the temple. Usually you have a lot of questions, right? Because there's all except for him, except for Dimitri over there. But I think we can safely say that you didn't understand everything in that Gita, right, when you first read it. but you had sense there's some substantial thing here. You trusted, yeah. So that's obviously coming from a very nice previous life. Anyway, the point is Amnaya is a very important phrase. It means which Prabhupada emphasizes all the time, the transmission of the knowledge as it is. What is the beginning of that 4th chapter? Krishna is saying, I spoke this to the sun god, but evam parampara praptam emam rajashi sakalene hamata yogo nashta parantapa. Then it's understood, especially by the kings, the Rajarshis, because they can run a society and make everyone Krishna conscious. This is how important it is. Krishna reinstates that. So he says, by the powerful force of time, the science as it is has been lost. This is just the nature of the material world. Everything is degraded by time, So therefore he comes again because Krishna wants that Dharma to be there. So that as that knowledge is coming down purely, that's the Amnaya. And then there's all these 10 points which I won't get into. Krishna is God, he's full of power, he's ocean of rasa, with part and parcel, where some of us are covered, some of us are liberated. Everything, and this is the key point, Lord Chaitanya reconciled, everything, material and spiritual, is simultaneously one with and different from Krishna. That's inconceivable, therefore it's achintya, beta tattva. And then what's the sadhana for all this? That's just sambandha gyan. The relationship, who is God, who are we, what is this nature, what is it really? Then he says, obviously, Shuddha Bhakti. Pure devotion is the method by which this is revealed to us. And the goal, the sadhya, is pure love for Krishna. Sadhyam tad pritam eve. This is what Lord Chaitanya taught. It's very nice substance. And then there's so many, explanations of each point, obviously. And he wrote this Jaiva Dharma to explain it all. All right, let's try to do one more verse.
Hare Krishna.
Uh-oh. Haribol Vijay. He's in Portugal. He listens to all the class. Please.
Dravida Prabhu, my obeisances. The quote from the purport is as follows. He sees, quote, he sees everything, past, present, and future. He lives within the heart of the living being, and he knows what we have done in the past, what we are doing now, and what is awaiting us in the future.
I know where you're going with this.
End quote. So, Prabhu, my question is related to free will and the minute independence that the part and parcel of Lord Krishna has. So, if God gives us minute independence and also free will, my question is as follows in the context of this quote. How free is our free will if the Lord knows what is awaiting us in the future? Because when I speak about minute independence and free will, this is my private life. Is it that my private free will, my private minute independence is of the knowledge, is knowable by, it doesn't matter who is there knowing about my present, past, and future, even if it is God. This is my private minute independence, this is my private free will. So how, the question is, how free is my free will if God is knowing what is awaiting me, us, or me in the future?
Congratulations. You're the 1,000,000th person who's asked that question. That's always a puzzle.
Why are you saying congratulations?
Well, what I'm saying is that's a very common question. In fact, I knew you were going to ask it as soon as you read the quote from the purport. So this is, here it's very interesting that you're talking about, that you asked that question in this context, and it comes up from a quote here. Because the whole thing that we've been reading is really the inconceivable qualities of Krishna, of the Supersoul, right? That he's far away. He's in Goloka Vrindavan. So how can he accept what we offer here in San Diego? He's got hands everywhere, but doesn't have any hands. He doesn't, he has feet. He has feet, but he doesn't have feet like us. In other words, this is one of the things. The first thing is the private. There's no private. How private can it be when he's in your heart, and he's giving you the intelligence and your remembrance? Like he doesn't know, or he's lost the record, or the hard drive crashed or something. He knows everything that you've done in the past. Now, when you think about it, it doesn't really change anything. Krishna he gives us the opportunity. He always gives us the free will, right? Karishe vachanang tava, Prabhupada famously said at the end of the book. Now do as you wish, to Arjuna, right? So on one level, this is how Krishna works. On one level, he's dealing with him on almost like a friend to friend. Even though he's spoken all these things, he's saying now. He doesn't say now. I'm going to force you to fight. Krishna doesn't do that. That's not bhakti. Prabhupada famously said Krishna doesn't want us to love him at the point of a revolver. That's not love, So there's plenty of what you would say automatic things going on in life below human life. Instinct, right? Animals, how much free will do they really have? They're programmed to do this. They can only use a certain thing. The consciousness is much more covered. So Krishna, on one level, he's providing us with the choice. And that's a very important point, because otherwise there's no bhakti. So we have to understand, yes, I'm freely giving this, my life to Krishna. I'm freely doing this service for Krishna. Otherwise it's not service, it's coercion. Right? That's what bhakti is all about. Krishna takes a risk by expanding with all of these free agents because he wants to have this free loving exchange. So then the other question where does this come in where he knows everything? Because this is right out of the Gita. Veda hamsamatitani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kashchana. That's the verse Prabhupada is quoting here. I know everything that happened in the past, everything that's happening now, and everything that happened in the future, but me no one knows. That's the translation of the verse, right? So where's there any free will? And it's easy to say, well look, Krishna knows either it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. I'm not going to do anything. You know, when Krishna tells me to surrender, I'll surrender. You know, but as for me, I mean, either I'm going to surrender or not, so I'm just going to go about my business. You see the problem with that? If we want to be reinstated in our natural position as pure devotees of Krishna, relishing bhakti rasa at every step, then we have to decide to surrender to Krishna. Now, when that's going to happen, whether Krishna knows it or not, we don't know it. We're making a decision. We didn't do it for so many lives. Now we want to do it. We have to be determined because we have all of that other conditioning from all those previous lives. So the point is that when you think about it, it doesn't change your free will. Now, if someone has taken you prisoner, and they say you're going to destroy, you're going to go here and do this, and do this what I want you to do, or else, then you've lost your free will. I know what you're going to do, and you can say no, you don't. I can always protest, and you can just kill me, whatever, like that. In other words, you still have a little bit of free will, but it's real modsy. But Krishna is giving us the most important kind of free will. Think of me or not. Serve me or not. It's up to you. So, suppose he knows, because he knows the inner workings of our consciousnness, that yes, on this particular day, he or she is actually going to chant Hare Krishna and start the process of devotional service. On that level, on one level, he knows that. But on another level, we have our perception is that we're making the decision, and we are making the decision. So the thing is, it's kind of paradoxical. It's just like this. He has no hands, but he can grasp everything. He has no feet, but he can walk. He can run like anything. So that's as far as I could take it, Vijay. It is a puzzle, and I thought of this question myself. I asked it, and that's more or less the answer I got. If someone wants it.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, again, wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
One of these days, I'm going to test you. I'm going to give the most stupid answer and see if you still tell me. Oh, wonderful answer. He always says a wonderful answer. Okay, we have a little time, but I don't want to do another.
Krishna Prabhu.
Oh, there's another. You have a question, Danavari?
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So
Hare
in this context, in this context, you just explained. One of my friend told me that, I will wait till whatever Krishna is in our heart, and if he wants me to do, then I'll do it. But until then, I don't. And I said, well, you have free will. I know Krishna is powerful, and he said it's up to Krishna, and he's the doer, and whenever he wants me, I will do it. So in that context, I told her that we have free will. So that's the right understanding. What you just said, that we have to do our part. Even though we know that Krishna will.
Yeah, I mean,
whenever it's to Krishna's mercy, but we have to still do it.
Well, the thing is, if you're going to approach Krishna, in the way that's going to be fruitful, it has to be in this context of surrender and to his will. But what does he say? It's not like it's a big secret here. Sarva dharma parityajya mame kangshanam braja. The whole essence of the Gita is in those two verses, 1865-66. If you just follow those two, you've understood the Gita. Then you can move to the Bhagavad Gita. So he says for the second time in the book, Manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Mame vaishyasi Then 18, Satyam te pratijane priyosime. So I put into a little poem. Just think of me, become a Vaishnav, worship me, and bow down low. You come to me, our friend, I promise you this boon I shall bestow. And then the next verse, reject all dharmas, and surrender only unto me. Your sins I'll nullify, O Arjun, from anxiety be free. So Krishna has made this statement. It's not a secret, you see. And so what's the point of saying, oh, when Krishna wants me to, I'll surrender? He wants you to. And it's in the Gita. And all of the great Vaishnavas like Srila Prabhupada say, yes, you should. So, and Krishna encourages us to approach the realized soul, surrender and ask questions and serve, and everything will be revealed. So the desire of Krishna is as plain as day. And you're waiting for him to speak within the heart. But you're not pure enough to hear him in the heart, so you'll be waiting forever. You know? It's a way of not surrendering. You know? It's a trick. So we want to get beyond that and be very follow what Krishna's instructions for how to surrender. That's what it means to serve Krishna. And then the more revelation comes. When we're in that mood of service, that service attitude, that opens the gates for more realization. Otherwise, you put yourself in a little box. You know, if Krishna wants me to surrender, he should tell me. He is tell you. No, directly. I want him to appear. You know, it's not going to happen. It's a cop out.
Thank you so much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Mm-hmm. All right, now we have only 1 minute, so we have time for one more little poem. I was just. This is a meditation on. Most of you, anyone seen this painting? The painting of Krishna in the forest. He's sitting on the idyllic seat there. He's got a little dove on his hand, and he got the deer over here, and there's a little cow. You've seen? Yeah. So I wrote a poem about that. This is years ago. The sweetness of Sri Krishna's form beguiles. Still sweeter is his face like autumn moon. But sweeter than the sweetest is his smile, whose luscious beauty makes the gopis swoon. Govinda's beauty captivates the doves, the swans, the deer, the cows, and every tree. Indeed, in Braja, every creature loves Sri Krishna and is drowned in ecstasy. That all-enchanting land is paradise, our home where we may dwell eternally. Most welcome there are those who pay the price to learn to love Sri Krishna perfectly. So on that note, we can await the openings of the curtain and see the beautiful form of Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. So tomorrow, without doubt, text 16. Can you make it tomorrow? This is just